Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners and provide you some value that you can take back to your business, your family, and your personal life and transform your life. We hope you really enjoy this. Cheers, everyone. Good afternoon, Robert Clinkybeard here with Dean DeSantis. Thank you for joining me on Commercial Landscapers Podcast, Dean.
Welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Robert.
So, Dean, tell me a little bit about just give me a quick overview of your background. Who's Dean DeSantis?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually a second generation owner of DeSantis Landscapes. My father founded the business in 1974. And after I graduated college, the University of Oregon, with a business degree, I didn't really have plans to go in the landscape industry. And I went off and had a whole nother career for for the next 10 or 12 years. I spent working mainly in education and training. I was in the Peace Corps for a couple of years during that time, taught English in Japan for another couple of years. But then when my kids were born in 2000, I realized, that wasn't such a bad industry and business, and came back to the business in 2001. And I've been running the business since my father retired in 2006. And I bought the business from him then, and been running the business ever since.
Very cool. And you also worked for a while in Japan, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah, in Tokyo. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So with your working in Japan and working with the Peace Corps, how do you feel that experience has influenced in how you work with not only your team but also your customers?
Yeah. Good question. It was really kind of life defining for me. That time I spent about 6 years living and working abroad. And what it really taught me, Robert, is just the power of just really understanding, meeting people where they're at, and understanding that, we all have different perspectives, different worldviews, different ways of looking at things. And it's important to try your best to, have that empathy and try to listen to people and find out what their perspective and what their interests are. So I'm a big believer. I ask a lot of questions. I'm not so much of a person that, stands up in my soapbox and opines about my belief necessarily, because I know what I believe. I'm interested in what you believe and how you think and how you look at the world. That's when I learn something, is when you're speaking. I don't learn so much when I'm speaking. So I really, I ask a lot of questions and try to understand, read the room a bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I operate. And, the phrase I use a lot is we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So,
yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because, obviously you're a very influential leader. Now, do you more lead from, your office, or are you out there in the field talking to your team? How do you just like to lead?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a combination. We've got about 120 employees right now, so it is difficult to get in front of everyone. But it's certainly with COVID and the pandemic that we're dealing with, it's really caused us to look at how do we communicate and lead in a different way, because we can't be right there with people as much. So I've really been using a lot of video lately, and in fact I just finished. I do every 2 weeks on Friday, I'll do what we call DeSantis News. And so we talk about, I celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, and we, give attaboys, attagirls that may have come in over the past 2 weeks. We have 25 fundamentals that are kind of the basis of our business. And we have a new fundamental every week that we talk about. And so on those videos, I talk about the fundamental this week is, this week it's create win-win solutions is this week's fundamental at DeSantis Landscapes. Next week's fundamental is treat everything as if it were your own, whether it's the equipment or whether it's a property. So we focus on those things. So video is really a big way that I'm getting messages out. Fortunately, my time in the Peace Corps, I was in Ecuador, so I speak Spanish. Cool. And so I'm able to do those bilingually. As much as possible. So that's a big help, obviously, as well.
That's great. And what type of response have you got back from your team?
You know, everyone loves to hear their name, right? And hear, you know, and celebrating their birthday or be recognized for, hey, yeah, I've been here for 5 years, and you know, and Dean, you know, mentioned that on the news episode. So, you know, that's I get a lot of positive feedback from that, and you know, everyone likes to hear the recognition and hear the good things that are going on, you know, in the business. Everyone, you know, there's a feel good aspect to it that makes you feel good about the place you're working.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, they should. I appreciate that. Now you talked about being you know, obviously everybody's been affected by COVID this year, but you've also had additional challenges through wildfires.
That's right. Yeah.
So, you know, what have you learned from this year, and how do you feel you're going to apply that going into 2021?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for all of us, right? I mean, it just seems like one thing after another. But I mean, the biggest thing I've learned is just the amazing resilience of people, and how people, you know, how flexible people are, and truly understanding. I mean, people just really, I mean, they're understanding of just you know, the humanity, and people are, you know, forgiving, I think. You know, we've had you know, during the wildfires, we couldn't work for a week because the smoke was so bad, and we couldn't be outside. And I think I had one client who was upset about the fact that we didn't service their property that week. Everyone else was completely understanding. So just kind of, you know, that positive feeling, and the humanity of people. People are understanding, and and so definitely learn that, and learn just the power of our team, and how the ability to pivot, and because there was a lot of pivoting that we had to do this year during the pandemic. And you know, at one point we were down to, you know, we had one person per vehicle, so we had to have other people, you know, driving their personal vehicles to job sites and things like that. And all the COVID protocols that we're still now, you know, practicing now. I mean, that was one of the messages I just talked about in the DeSantis news episode just a few minutes ago. Was the cases are, you know, going crazy right now, skyrocketing. We can't let our guard down. We've got to continue to, you know, to be really vigilant about these protocols.
Right. Yep. And that's, you know, important, because, you know, I think I've heard the words pivot or being nimble used so many times this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is good, but I think to be able to do that, you need to have a strong team and strong culture to be able to adapt to those changes and come out of this really strong. So I think, you know, I'm glad you've managed to do that, and you have a strong team. And I think your video messaging has definitely helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, Robert, it's the communication has been the key. I mean, because there's been so much uncertainty, and that's something that I've really, I feel like our leadership team has done a pretty good job with, is just letting people know, what are the protocols and what's going on? How are we feeling about what do we see that's happening? Because there's just so much uncertainty. Everyone's uncertain. So as much certainty as we can put in there, or at least, you know, here's what we're thinking, how we're thinking about this, and communicate that out to the team. Right. Is super critical, just to let people, because otherwise people make up stories if you don't tell them what's going on. They make stuff up.
They fill that void. Yeah.
They fill the void. Exactly.
Which is dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So just at the early part of the call, you know, you've been involved in different peer groups over the years. How influential have those peer groups been in terms of either your personal development or just developing your company into a bigger and you know, healthier company?
Yeah, it's really been critical for my own personal development and my leadership development, because there's just, you know, there's so many things that, especially as you're growing a business, you've never been there before. You've never been to that next level. So to be able to, you know, bounce ideas off other leaders, other owners, business owners, has been really critical for me. I joined my first peer group. Oh gosh, it was probably 12, 15 years ago. And it was a family business group. So these are all second, third. We even had one guy in the group who was a fourth generation owner of his business. Wow. I mean, which is really unheard of in most businesses, to have that kind of legacy. Yeah. But I mean, and it was really critical for me, because I was going through the transition with my father at that time. So super helpful to be able to talk to guys who had been there before, and and just tips about how to deal with dad, how to deal with business,
Right.
and just all that kind of stuff. So that was the first group I was a part of, and we still meet. We don't meet on as regularly as we did previously, but we still get together once a year around Christmas just to say hello and
Oh, that's cool.
and
That's awesome.
connect with each other. And then more recently, about maybe 5 years ago, I joined a Vistage group, and that's a local group of other business owners and CEOs in all different industries, and we meet once a month as a group, and then with the facilitator, we would meet one-on-one with him, kind of as an executive coach.
Right.
So that was super helpful, because what you find out is that it's, business is the issues that you come up with, or the challenges that you come up against, are pretty similar across industries. It really, and really what I found is it comes down to people. It comes down to, how do you inspire people? How do you create a vision that's going to motivate people to move in the same direction together? How do you deal with disciplinary issues? I mean, all those sorts of things, those are common issues across industries.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'm part of a similar group to Vistage called Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and the same thing where it's peer groups, 7 to 10 people, and yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of those similar issues are same in different industries. So just to be around like-minded people and be able to take that information from them was super valuable.
Yeah. And then one thing I realized then that I was missing was to really drill into the granular detail of the landscape industry, with my Vistage group, because they're all different industries. So to really get into like production rates around, mowing, or, equipment purchases, things like that, was, that's not in their wheelhouse so much. So I recently joined a landscape industry specific peer group with companies all across the country, and so that's also been really helpful to get the insights from those business leaders.
That's awesome. And what type of things do you do in here? Do you do any like benchmarking or any other?
Exactly. We've actually got a meeting coming up just next week where we'll kind of review our year-to-date financials and do some comparisons. And this is where it's super helpful, because being in the same industry. So yeah, we'll do some benchmarking. Looking at salary ranges, even what do you typically pay for this type of position, and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, that's been extremely helpful. What equipment are you using? We do snow removal a little bit, not nearly as much as some of the guys in the group who are on the Northeast. So I learn a lot from those guys about different snow removal equipment and things like that, where we can really get specific and kind of nerdy about specific equipment and stuff.
That's good. So tell me about, I used to be part of a peer group, and one of the challenges I found was, especially at the beginning when I first joined, is I'd come back and I'd have 2 or 3 pages of notes.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost impossible to try and get all that stuff done. And then you're coming back to your team and you're telling them your new idea, or and it's really tough to try and almost get some traction to actually get some of that stuff implemented, especially if you're coming back with so many ideas. So tell me about how do you be successful at doing that?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and my team can relate to that. It was kind of like, oh, what new book or idea did Dean hear about last week, or whatever. So, excuse me. One of the things that we've started using is as a Gazelle's model, where we talk about you've got your big picture vision for the year, and we're pretty disciplined about, we've got 4 or 5 items. These are our big strategic goals for the year. And then each quarter we'll focus on what are called the rocks. What are the things that are going to help us to get to those 4 or 5, what action items are going to help us to get to those 4 or 5 bigger strategic goals. And then we've also then got our 3 to 5 year goals. Where do we want to be, in 3 to 5 years out? So it's really kind of going backwards and kind of breaking it down into smaller pieces that are actionable. And that's really helped us. And we meet quarterly with an executive coach that kind of holds us accountable, which is a key part of a peer group, is accountability. Because as leaders, who else is doing that? Who else is, and that's one of the biggest benefits I've gotten out of the peer groups is the accountability. And it's even hard sometimes in peer groups because for whatever reason, we don't like to kind of, press like, Robert, why didn't you get that done?
Well, it's true. I mean, owners in some ways, I don't know if they feel as though they're invincible or untouchable and can't be held accountable. So it's tough trying to hold that owner accountable. So if you have some type of a coach, whether it be a peer group coach or whatever type of coach, it just helps, keeps nudging you to get things done.
Yeah. So it's been great with the coach that we work with. I mean, so we meet quarterly and go over those rocks and look at, check out our progress. Is it complete? Is it still in progress? Do we carry that over to the next quarter? And that's been extremely helpful. And of course, we share that with our entire team. We've actually got a kind of a big, kind of meeting at the beginning of the year where they'll also develop some action items of their own, say our divisional teams. And then we do the same thing, more internally, is looking at those rocks that those teams have created.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's really important to break it down, because there's all kinds of things we can work on. There's all kinds of ways we can improve our business. But what are the 2, 3, 4 things that are critical? Yeah, and stay focused on those.
Well, the part of that, and again, I found that with entrepreneurs is that they're always looking for that shiny object. What they're being distracted with. Whereas if you have that, that either that 1-page plan or your VTO, then it just helps keep you focused. If you have that on display, then it just helps get that focus back in place. So
exactly. It's our rocks. I've got them up on my wall in my office. It's it's right front and center. I look at it every day of what are the critical things, because you're exactly right. I can be a shiny object guy where I can it's like, oh, the new idea, the latest thing.
You're an entrepreneur. We're all guilty of that. So as we finish up our talk here, Dean, you've got a lot of new people coming into the industry. There's a lot of acquisitions out there. So there's all these big companies forming, but there's obviously a lot of new people getting into the industry and starting off. What would be maybe your top 3 takeaways or pieces of advice that you would give to the up and comers into the industry?
Yeah, I think, one thing is, development has to start with me. So development has to start with that leader. And, think about that. I mean, you really got to, invest in yourself first. And that then I think can help you to help others. So I think that's as a business owner, business leader, that's, I think a key thing is, that personal development. And that'll help accelerate your ability to help others. And I think too, I mentioned earlier about asking questions. I think, being curious, continue to, tap into, mentors or others in the industry, others who have been, gone before you. If you join your national association and attend, the events that they've got, learn from others. I mean, that's just, there's so much information out there. And what I've been amazed by through, whether it's our state landscape association or the National Landscape Association, people are generous. People are generous with their time, are eager to help. So don't be afraid to call someone up, shoot them an email, or connect with them. And I think the third thing, Robert, is just ultimately as a leader, it's about empowering other people. That's really what the key is. And that gives you the opportunity to grow as a business, as a person, is to, the old adage of don't, try to work, not in your business, but on your business. And that's what allows you to do that, is by empowering other people. Right. And so that's a key thing. It's a hard thing, because no one does it like you, right? No one does it as well, or works as hard, all those things, but you got to get to that point where you you train and empower people to, to fill your shoes, fill those, take over those tasks. So you can, look at the big picture.
No, and even to touch back on your very first point, when you're investing in yourself, I mean, I'm 100% believer in that, but it doesn't just stop at the education part and learning more, but also you need to take care of yourself, whether it be physically, whether it be your the family around about you. Unless you have all those things firing on all cylinders, then you can't necessarily put that same effort into the people around you.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good point.
Well, cool. Well, thank you, Dean, for your time today. If people want to get in touch with you just to either learn a little bit more about the coaching or peer groups or your business and what you're all about, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and pretty active on LinkedIn, so that's a good way to get in touch with me. Or my email is pretty simple. It's deand@DeSantisLandscapes.com.
Okay. Cool. Well, awesome. Thank you, Dean, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you. So thank you, Dean.
Sounds good. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate the time.
Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today and you got some great takeaways for your business or your personal life. This is Robert Clinkybeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe through our website, commerciallandscapers.com, or through the various podcast channels out there. But anyway, hopefully you have an awesome day. Cheers.